The standoff is over. Mundubile and Makebi Zulu have now left United Nations protection and entered a new and potentially decisive phase of their confrontation with Zambia's law enforcement authorities. And this time, we are no longer dealing merely with reports that a handover might happen. It has happened. ZNBC reports that police spokesperson Godfrey Chilabi has confirmed that Mundubile and Makebi Zulu have been handed over and are undergoing interviews by a team of law enforcement officers. Disclaimer: the content in this video is based on publicly available reports, statements, and allegations. These claims remain unverified, and we do not endorse or confirm their accuracy. This video is intended for informational and discussion purposes only. Crucially, their lawyers are reportedly present. Police say an official statement will be issued after the interviews are concluded. But behind those few sentences is an extraordinary story involving the United Nations, Zambia's churches, the country's leading opposition figures, and allegations concerning national security. So how exactly did we get here? And more importantly, what happens now? Let's examine what we know. The church steps into the crisis. 8 church mother bodies have now issued a statement explaining their role in the transition. They are the Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, the Council of Churches in Zambia, the Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops, the Independent Churches of Zambia, the Apostolic Council of Churches, Christian Missions in Many Lands, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the New Apostolic Church. Their statement is extremely carefully worded. The churches say they received Mundubile and Makebi Zulu from the Office of the Special Assistant to the United Nations Secretary-General and the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Zambia. But listen carefully to what comes next. They describe themselves as a neutral third party. And according to the statements supplied to us, their responsibility was to facilitate the onward handover of Mundubile and Makebi to their legal representatives so that the legal processes concerning matters raised by the state could begin. That distinction matters, because this wasn't presented by the churches as a determination that Mundubile or Makebi was guilty of anything. Quite the opposite. The churches explicitly state that their role is not to determine innocence or guilt. Their stated objective was to ensure a peaceful transition. That is significant. From international protection to legal process. For days, one of the biggest questions in Zambia has been, what happens to Mundubile and Makebi Zulu? They had reportedly been under United Nations protection in Lusaka. Police wanted to question them. Their political allies raised concerns about their safety, and Zambia found itself facing an extraordinary standoff. Now that standoff appears to have been broken, the churches stepped into the middle, the transition took place, and Mundubile and Makebi are now facing investigators. But there is something else in that church statement that deserves close attention. The churches say they appreciate the confidence of the United Nations, the trust of the state, and the acceptance of the 2 opposition leaders. That suggests this was not simply a physical seizure of the 2 men from UN premises. The church statement presents it as a negotiated transition involving multiple parties, and that could be extremely important when reconstructing what actually happened behind the scenes. The assurances. Then comes perhaps the most important paragraph in the church statement. The churches refer to assurances given at the highest level. They call upon the state to ensure Mundubile and Makebi are treated humanely, with dignity, fairness, and full respect for due process and the rule of law. Now ask yourself, what exactly were those assurances? Who gave them? What precisely did the state promise? Were guarantees made concerning their physical safety? Were guarantees given concerning access to lawyers? Were guarantees made about where they would be detained? Were there assurances concerning how quickly they would appear before a court if arrested? Those details have not yet been fully explained publicly, but the fact that the churches specifically refer to assurances at the highest level makes those assurances an important part of this developing story. Police confirm questioning. Now we come to what is independently confirmed by Zambia's state broadcaster. ZNBC reports that police spokesperson Godfrey Chilabi confirmed Mundubile and Makebi were handed over and are currently being interviewed. Their lawyers are present, and police say they will issue a statement when those interviews conclude. That last point is critical, because at this stage, questioning does not automatically mean conviction. It does not even automatically tell us what charges, if any, will ultimately be brought against the 2 men. Police previously summoned Mundubile and Makebi in connection with investigations into alleged activities said to have the potential to threaten Zambia's national security. Those allegations are extremely serious, but they remain allegations requiring evidence and legal determination. Why police want answers? The questioning does not exist in isolation. It follows an extraordinary sequence of events after Zambia's election. A security operation was conducted at the premises associated with Mundubile. Former Minister Mitatwe Kafwaya was killed during the operation. Other individuals were arrested. Several people associated with the opposition have subsequently faced extremely serious allegations. Police have said they are investigating national security threats. The opposition has disputed the authorities' version of events, and Mundubile's political camp has alleged that the actions against opposition figures are politically motivated. Those are fundamentally conflicting narratives, and this is precisely why evidence now becomes so important. The questions Mundubile and Makebi may face. Investigators will presumably want answers concerning activities that authorities say occurred at premises associated with the two opposition leaders. But Mundubile and Makebi will also have questions for the state. What intelligence triggered the security operation? What exactly was recovered? Who legally owned any weapons recovered? Who fired during the confrontation? What forensic evidence exists? And what evidence connects Mundubile or Makebi personally to any alleged criminal activity? These are not questions social media can settle. International attention. This is no longer simply a domestic political argument. International media are reporting the development, and the involvement of the United Nations means Zambia's handling of this case will inevitably attract attention beyond its borders. The government's responsibility is therefore substantial. If investigators have evidence of criminal conduct, that evidence should ultimately be tested through lawful processes. If charges are brought, the accused must be given an opportunity to defend themselves. If there is insufficient evidence to charge them, that creates a different legal question. What should not happen is indefinite uncertainty. The Church's warning. The final portion of the Church statement may ultimately prove to be one of its most important sections. The Church's call for truth, justice, restraint, peace, unity, and stability. That is not accidental language. The Church bodies clearly recognize how politically sensitive this moment is. Brian Mundubile was President Hakainde Hichilema's principal opponent in the presidential election. Makebi Zulu was his running mate. This is therefore not an ordinary police interview involving unknown individuals. Every decision made by law enforcement will be examined politically. Every decision made by Mundubile's lawyers will be scrutinized, and every statement from the government will be analyzed. That makes transparency even more important. The next few hours, and now we arrive at the biggest question: what happens next? There are several possibilities. Police could conclude the interviews and release Mundubile and Makebi. Investigators could decide further questioning is required. Authorities could announce specific charges, or additional investigative steps could follow. Until police issue their promised statement, we simply do not know which direction this will take. And that is why viewers should be extremely cautious about social media claims announcing arrests, charges, or releases before authorities or the lawyers confirm them. Another important distinction: there is also a language issue worth watching. Some reports describe the development as Mundubile surrendering to police. Others describe him as being handed over. The Church statement describes a facilitated transition involving the UN, churches, and legal representatives. Those descriptions are similar, but they are not identical. As more information emerges, establishing the exact sequence will matter. The political dimension. There is another enormous issue sitting behind today's events. Mundubile disputed the presidential election outcome. International reporting says his opposition was unable to file its intended challenge after access to the courts became an issue around the petition deadline. President Hakainde Hichilema is due to be sworn in for another term on September the 1st. That means Zambia is simultaneously dealing with the aftermath of a disputed election, serious national security investigations, and the questioning of the principal opposition candidate. That combination demands institutional restraint. The government must demonstrate that criminal investigations are based upon evidence and law. The opposition must respond substantively to legitimate investigations. Police must operate according to established procedures. and political leaders on all sides should avoid rhetoric capable of inflaming an already sensitive situation. This is now about evidence. For days, Zambia has heard accusations from both directions. The government has made serious national security allegations. The opposition has made serious allegations against the government and security agencies. But allegations cannot endlessly answer allegations. Eventually, somebody has to produce evidence. If the state alleges criminal activity, show the evidence through the proper legal process. If Mundubile and Makebi say the allegations are fabricated, their defense must be heard. If anybody alleges unlawful conduct by security agencies, that too should be investigated. That is what due process means. It does not protect one political party. It protects the integrity of the republic.